Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
This is a Danger Entertainment podcast. DangerEntertainment.net's Danger Entertainment Podcast Network.
And welcome to the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Ian.
Hey, Ian.
Yeah.
Did you know you could find us on the Danger Entertainment Network?
Danger.
Danger Entertainment. That's right.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. It's a tad bit dangerous. You'd be shocked to find that out. There's a bunch of great podcasts you can find there. Our friends from the History of Bad Ideas podcast. Who the What Now? The Sodded Geek. No, they retired. That's right. They retired. But there are a bunch of other great podcasts you can find there, along with us. We're the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast, and we do pop culture and chili cheese dogs and whatever else floats our fancy.
Yeah.
Check us out.
For sure.
For sure. We're on most podcatchers, so give us a look.
Peace.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast. And or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org, or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out and try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everybody. My name is Jen, and I am your hostess for the evening. And with me, as always, and my favorite co-hosts of The Crazy Life, we have Henno and Brian. Hey, guys.
Howdy. Hello. So,
how's you doing?
Before we get into anything here, I wanted to point out something interesting. If you go by like weeks on the calendar, essentially, this is episode 208, which is 4 years.
Cool.
So
wow.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yep.
I know someone that had 208 tattooed on their lower lip.
Really?
Really?
So it's really weird every time it comes up. It's probably no weirder than any other number that comes up. But
Right.
It just happens to be the one that was tattooed on his lower lip.
Yeah. Right.
That is pretty cool that we've been talking for 4 years.
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah. So, like, I don't think it's the actual, anniversary
Probably
of the
not.
show. I
Missed
can't remember
one
when
or
we
two.
put our first one up, but yeah, because like with Tony and I, it doesn't quite line up because, when we, when we put up the first one, I think we already had like 2 or 3 recorded or something like that. So, or 2, I can't remember. But yeah, Tony and I are still, about 2 months, I think, away from the 8-year mark. So,
God, that's amazing.
yeah.
That's crazy.
That really is
I know.
amazing.
That is, yeah, pretty silly.
And I would like to point out, because I think it's extra awesome, the fact that, commitment is a difficult thing for someone with mental health and stuff, but for all of us to make the commitment and to step up, and granted, one person can't be here, another person can't be here for various reasons, but the fact that we made the commitment and we still fight to keep that commitment every week, that takes a lot of commitment and effort. So
Yeah.
kudos to us.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's really great about doing something like sobriety or that kind of thing is it ends up typically being the one thing that you've done consistently in your life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For the first time. Because,
Yeah.
most of us got into our, whatever behaviors post, high school, college kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And up till that point, you're doing something different all the time.
Yeah.
Right? No one's stacking 5 years in a row on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so to finally, other than jobs, and even that
Mhm.
nowadays is rare for someone to say, like me, I'm a rarity. I've had 2 jobs pretty much my entire life.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is
just
awesome.
unusual these days,
But
right?
yeah, it's unusual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was actually something that was very early on when I was in my early 20s and I was kind of in school, kind of in a band, kind of working, kind of, not sure what I want to do with my life. It was wild how a steady job ended up being security for me.
Yeah.
I had a real hard time. Like, I felt really lost in life. I felt confused and I didn't know what I was doing. And then when I got and it's kind of, it's like no wonder, I've shared so much about alcoholic behaviors, most of them being external. It's like no wonder a job became security for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I couldn't find it inside myself. So I had
Right.
to find it somewhere. So I was like, hey, I got this thing I do from Monday through Friday.
Yeah. I think I did the same thing, like I've, because of having low self-esteem, I found my self-worth in the fact that,
Yep.
the places I did work, I moved up fast. I was, at least for a while, I was, seen as an asset kind of a thing. So, I definitely got that from it. So like you were saying, it's like I did the same thing. I think you just, a little different, but basically the same thing as I replaced what I saw as a deficiency with work. So, or a job,
Right.
I should say.
May 17th, 2015, Crazy Life number 1. What's the point?
Yep.
That was a lot of scrolling.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be.
Oh,
But I totally get that, Brian, because it was everything about having, there was value to the fact that somebody was willing to teach me something that the paycheck,
mm-hmm. Exactly.
the chance to prove yourself, all these things. It's really wild how that became it. Like if I were ever, what's something that you'll do in your life that'll provide you a level of of comfort and security and stuff. And I think that's the real key here. Now that I'm thinking about it, is when you get into the underlying motives here,
Mm-hmm.
what does a job represent? Security at a financial level,
Mm-hmm.
security at, at these, it's like, okay, was it about money?
Yeah.
What was it? Was it self-esteem? Was it something that you picked up from your parents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is something with me too. I definitely did pick it up from, my parents. So, because my dad was one that, I mean, he owned his own business most of my life versus, like me, I started out by working for other people, but, I just see his work ethic, and, he was the, do it right the first time, be proud to put your name on it,
That's my dad too.
Yeah, and he was always asking people, why do you have time to do it again instead of doing it right the first time, kind of like that kind of stuff. And it wasn't like he wasn't a jerk about it. It was just that it's like, why waste your own time, If you do it right the first time, if you do it right the first time, you don't have to waste your own time later. Plus, the jobs he worked as a body shop, in a body shop. So literally time is money there. If he has to go back and do a job again, he's taking money out of his pocket.
Yep.
Because he could be working on something else. So, yeah.
Bogart's breathing heavy in the microphone.
Yeah, he is. Take mouth breather.
A little snorts. Yep.
He's such a cutie.
He really is a goofball. He's just going.
Yeah.
Bogart is one of our furry family members here.
Yep. French bulldog.
Yep.
Very
thick
robust
accent. Yeah.
Very thick accent.
Yeah. Lay snort.
Yeah. All that's thick. Head. Chest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get this show rolling. Who wants to start us off today?
I will. I
haven't even thought about it.
Yeah. Well, then I'll give you
I'll
time.
think.
Well, here's the best part, Henno. Henno recorded Salty Language with me again last night, but we really didn't talk about our week last night.
No,
we just kind of jumped into
didn't.
Stuff, so at least this time it won't feel like we're just rehashing. I kind of kept the ball rolling this week. Not as productive, but still productive.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've gotten a variety of things done that I wanted to do. Again, a lot of them aren't things that, like, you wouldn't physically notice a lot of them, because some of them are just things I wanted to do on the computer, or just stuff I've wanted to do for whatever reason. And but I've realized this week that without really sitting and counting it, I can think of probably about 8 or so things to 10 things I took off my to-do list this week. So,
nice.
Yeah, and they're not all like tiny things. A couple of them were, but most of them were, a little more, significant than that. So, yeah, and the main reason I've been slowed down this week is just, again, it's our weather. It just keeps raining, and it's just crushing my sinuses. I actually, a couple of nights ago, I was sitting in my room, and I had this, like, my head was just hurting so bad right over my left eye, like right above my left eyebrow. And I just kind of put my fingers there, and I was like, whoa, I was like, there's actually a lump here. Like, there, and I check, I'm tapping the other side, and I'm like, nope, I can straight out feel bone, basically. But when I touched where that lump was, I basically could feel it all the way down my left nostril, like that side of my face. So I was like, wow. I was like, I must really, and I'm like, man, please don't be an infection,
Yeah. That's some really swollen sinuses.
Yeah. So I took some, medicine to, see if that would help. And it did. And the swelling went down. It's not there now. So I'm still going to talk to my doctor about that because that's not anything I remember. I've noticed it a little bit, but usually it's more near my nose where I can feel like that area kind of swollen. But this was up above and I know the sinuses go kind of all over the place in your face, but that was a little different than I'm used to. So, yeah. But, yeah, that's been kind of kicking my butt this week. I've been trying to work through it. But a couple of the days, it was like, man, it's like I'm not getting out of bed before 6 at night or so because I just can't. My head just hurts too bad. I can't even look at the light, basically.
Oof.
Yeah. So it happens, I just deal with it. But I do need to get, I do need to go back to my doctor, and I do need to be more forceful about, hey, I need this dealt with. This is really significantly hurting my life, because it's a big reason why I'd have a hard time holding a job at the moment. This past week, I've had a headache every day but one. And I don't mean, just a little, I mean, put you down for the day headache, I had one of them, it was 3 days straight of that. And then I had a break, and then I've had one since. Today, I'm finally, it lightened up because there's no rain really today, So, yeah. But like I said, I've been still trying to get some stuff done, through that time and whatever. So, yeah. And I was looking to see if I had anything written down. Couldn't remember if I had any notes.
There's a new medicine that I was seeing advertised anyways for migraines.
Yeah.
So
I
don't know.
Yeah, it's the first, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's the first drug developed specifically for migraines. Mm-hmm. And I know a few people who've been on it. I know 3 people that have used it, and all 3 of them have said that their migraines have been cut by 2/3 or so. Wow. And on the commercial, they say that the average is half, I think. But to people with migraines, sinus headaches, that kind of stuff, it's if you could cut your headaches by half, that's huge, So I know that for that though, I probably got to go talk to my neurologist again. So, and then we come back to the MRI thing.
Oh, there you go again. Yep.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see where all this goes. But yeah, that was. I played some more Magic against people online this week. I think I'm kind of setting that as a little bit of a goal, is to try to get in 5 games a week against people, not against the computer. And it's so weird because if you sat here watching me play, you would never know the difference. Mm-hmm. But I know which is which, So, yeah, but that's been kind of nice to do again too. So, yeah, I think that's it for me though. I can't think of anything else.
Cool.
So what are you getting out of that, by the way?
What do you mean?
Difference, when it's a person versus a computer. What are you feeling?
Well,
that's different about
it's the anxiety is what it is, because right now I could not go sit down in a shop and play against somebody. My anxiety just is too crazy about it. But I can sit and play against a computer here all day, and it never would make me anxious. And like I said, in this format, I don't chat with the people. I think there is a chat, but I don't use it. So I don't even, I play my turn. I wait till they do theirs, and then I just, it's just the same as playing against a computer, but I know it's a person. And I don't know why, but that does, it's different to, in my own brain. So, and it helps because I still, if I start to play a game against somebody who's a person, I still get really anxious about it. But part of it also is by playing, the computer in the thing I think is set at a lower setting basically, and I haven't found a way to turn it up. So it's like playing against a beginner. And I'm not saying I'm great at Magic, but I'm definitely not close to a beginner as far as skill level goes. So I win most of those games. And, losing is not a bad thing when you're playing a game like that. because you learn from it, you know? So, you know, I want to play against someone who has the potential to beat me. That's how you get better, you know? So that's the other thing I get out of it.
Do you have anxiety about whether they're judging you and
Yeah.
judging your play?
That really is a lot of it. It was that way. Like even when I had my shop and I played, like I, you know, just play behind the counter. I just play on the counter against people. And so many times I was that way. I was anxious, or I, you know, like, oh, they're, you know, going to criticize my moves or whatever. And I think a lot of it's because a lot of the guys that I think for a long time, I didn't see them as peers because they were the guys playing when I first got into the game. And the thing is, you can, you know, I've said before, Magic is a very easy game to learn, but it's a hard game to master. And you can be playing for years and years and years and still be kind of the same skill level, whereas someone new is going to kind of you know, it's like when you play an RPG, the first like 10 or 20 levels, you blow through leveling up. Then you hit a certain point where it's like, okay, now I got to grind, you know, and you play against somebody who's been playing for a while, they're level 40, and you'll get to level 30 before they get to 42 or something like that. And you're like, geez. And it's like, no, they just have a long, you know, their skill level is more consistent. It just takes longer to grind up for them once you're at a certain point. And it's the same way in Magic. It's, you know, you can go from a beginner to decent player pretty fast if you, you know, really if you pay attention and, you know, try. And, so I think that's part of it is, you know, my self-esteem is just, and also I don't think I saw those guys as peers for a long time. And I think they saw me as a peer, but I don't think I saw them as peers. I still saw them as, it's kind of like, you know, like if you have an older sibling or something, you know, they're always the older sibling. Even though once you hit a certain point, they look at you more as like me, there's 15 years difference between me and my oldest sister. You know, when I was 15, she treated me like I was 15, you know. Now when we talk, she doesn't treat me that way generally, you know. So it's, you know, like again, she sees me more as an equal than you know, less than basically. So, but I'm always I'm always paranoid that I'm the less than, you know, because I mean, one of my biggest fears is just always the, you know, I'm not enough kind of thing. So it's so funny, like how Magic even ties into this. That's how deep all this runs with me. Because seriously, I used to play against anybody. I didn't care who. I didn't care if they were like the best in the state. Didn't matter. Let's sit down and play, you know. And I got my butt whooped a lot. But like I said, that's how you get better. You know, you learn where you make your mistakes. You shore up those mistakes, and next thing you know, hey, the games start getting closer and closer, and you know, eventually you win one. So, yeah, that's basically where I'm at now, is I'm trying to rebuild that. I still have no intention really of like going and playing in stores or anything, but it's
okay.
If I was going to do anything, honestly, I'd probably play Magic Online, which is different from what I'm playing now. What I'm playing now, you can play as a free to play. Magic Online, you have to buy all your cards. So, you know, as far as I know, there's no like free, you know, like if you win 5 games, you don't get free packs. You have to go into tournaments to win packs and that and stuff. So, you know, but even that, I have no plans on doing that, mainly just because it's expensive. But I would like to feel like in this other that at any time it's like, hey, you know what? I want to play a game. I can just jump in and play against someone who will give me an actual challenge. You know? It's all right. So, yeah. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it then.
I'm kind of like that with music still. A little bit.
Yeah.
But it's getting better. I think some of it's that I'm not like, at least as like a guitar player, I'm not okay with who I am still.
Yeah.
Like it's always that I compare and I think I should be better and this and that. But what's interesting is it's the other way around. because I've been doing it for such a short period of time that like there's something about that is like, I know it's a kind of a fallback, but it works, but it helps me. It gets me out of my head and allows me to just play, because I say, hey, I've only been doing this for a year and a half.
No matter what it is you do, that's where you want to get, right? You hear athletes talk about that, like baseball players, when they're in a slump, you know, they'll be like, I just want to get a hit because then I can get out of my head and I can just play the game again. And, you know, and you can tell once they start hitting, they get loose again, you know, and when you start trying too hard, you generally don't succeed as well, you know, at least in sports.
That's why I'm enjoying playing bass so much, is because like that pressure I put on myself is not there.
Yeah, very well could be. You're just you're in your element, or, you know, in the moment. You're just playing. You're having fun and playing.
I figure I can't, like, if I'm staying at this level with these people, you know, and I'm there and I'm doing it, then it's like, then I'm doing my job.
Right.
And I have none of this self-expectation, and there's no of this, it all really comes down to just being overly critical of oneself.
Well, and I mean, you know, there's also, in the title, it doesn't say lead, you know.
It's true.
It feels like there'd be more pressure to play lead guitar than rhythm guitar. You know, even though they both have their place, they're important, you know, but one just has that connotation of you're kind of one of the front guys, you know, like
the front guy.
Yeah, you know.
Well, you've given yourself the permission to be imperfect.
You know what? That's right. And I'm not judging myself based on an arbitrary value, which is like, you've been playing for this long. I mean, it's very. It's kind of funny if you look at it. I take a masculine approach to guitar playing, while I'm taking more of a feminine approach to bass playing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, by those definitions of, like, with guitar playing, I will evaluate things based on numbers and you know, that kind of stuff, where I really don't care when it comes to the bass playing.
Yeah.
It all, like, for me, it all comes down to, am I doing my job from a rhythm standpoint? You know, it's a lot more personal and a lot more about how things feel.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. I haven't really thought about it, but it's great. It's another reminder of, you know, when the people around me that know me as a guitar player, they're like, oh, you know, I wish you get up and play guitar. And I'm kind of like, I don't. And I'm okay with that now. And this just makes me even be more okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did, I'll just slide in. We had a gig this week, and we've been really putting a lot of effort into our sound system and this kind of stuff. And where we were playing on Friday, it was a tiny little restaurant, and it's a stripped down deal. Even if we played outside, which it wasn't looking good for the weather, I was like, no, we can't do this whole sound system. We got to go back to kind of the basics. And it was really kind of fun because we are standing within a couple feet of each other. We're just smashed together.
Yeah. You just got like the singer on a megaphone.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, like pretty much.
Yeah.
The drummer literally put like towels on the top of some of his drums just to dampen even more.
Yeah.
Because it really wasn't necessary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because I imagine in a small restaurant it'd be boom, boom. Otherwise, yeah.
And it's a type of place where they get a lot of phone orders.
Oh, geez.
The phone was the worst, you know. But it was a really fun gig, and it was probably one of my better, where I really felt good with my playing. You know, I still had mess ups, but it was definitely not where it was before. And one of the things I did, this was kind of one of my wins, was, you know, part of, I didn't realize at the time, you know, when I talked about being very productive last week and mixing this live show we did, one of the things I generally don't, I know it's a thing that you should do, and I was reminded why you should do it, is I don't like watching video of myself. I don't like listening to myself. I don't have a problem with it with podcasts. You know, most people, the first thing is like the sound of their voice.
Yeah.
I'm so over that. You know, I've just recording myself singing, I eventually got over it. So I've never felt weird about how I speak. yeah, sure, I'll listen to myself on a podcast. It's like, wow, you never really got to the point there, buddy. But I don't critique myself in that regard. It's like when I get on, do the podcast thing, I become who I am. And it might be different than a personal conversation, and it might be different than, me sitting in front of a bunch of people giving a speech, whatever it is. But I don't beat myself up too much about that stuff. And yet, for some reason, I don't listen to myself play music. And I did by mixing all these songs.
Oh, yeah, because
so
you have to. Yeah.
I have to, right?
Yeah, right.
So I started learning things about what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right. Whereas before, because I didn't listen, it's not about me. It's about being a contributing team member in a way.
Yeah.
And it's a unique opportunity. How often do we get to step aside and look at how we work together? Not just ourselves, but with others. Like, literally be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
And so I realized when we came into practice this last week, Tom, he's kind of our band leader, and he's just like, okay, what do you guys want to work on? I was like, right off the bat, we need to work on the beginning of this vocal part here and this here. And it wasn't like it was like something we did bad. It was just something that we could do better.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it only happened because I listened to myself and I listened to us, and I'm going to keep doing it. And it's a tool that people that are effective, they do this. There's you'll always hear it, but nobody likes to do it.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's like, whenever we're doing this kind of stuff, like, I learned that a long time ago, like in art stuff, is that you always keep your eyes peeled for inspiration. You always look at anything and go, can I use that as a medium of some sort? Can I use that as a tool? It's like the first time I saw somebody painting with coffee or tea or what, I'm like, why aren't you just using paint? And then, but you see it gives a different, it's got its own characteristics, and it's like a guy I follow on Instagram the other day, posted a portrait that he had done. And he was like, I was just working on paying attention to the speed of the shapes. And I'm like, huh? Because like I'd never really heard this before. So I was like, could you please elaborate? And he was like, sure, and then he, points out how if you look at when something's drawn, like a bone shape, like your arm or whatever, or like where your clavicle is or something like that, is going to have a much harsher kind of fast line, whereas fleshier parts of your body, if you're drawing them, it'd be kind of slower motions and curve type stuff. And I was like, okay, that makes tons of sense to me now. But it's another way he's looking at his work in a cerebral fashion. It's a way I never heard of. So, I'm like, okay, so now if I'm approaching something, it gives me another way of looking at things. Even if I'm not drawing, if I'm looking at art, I can admire the variation in the speeds that the artist has used for the shapes. Something, like I said, something that's totally, you're completely out of your comfort zone in this. Cause like, I was like, what is this guy talking about?
Talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great way to kind of end the week with some music and like because we practiced a lot the night before, my fingers hurt, and then this weekend I got through my whole, did my calendar for next month and all the gigs, and it's like, wow, we're doing a lot of gigs. This is going to be really fun, and I'm looking forward to the summer. And work, I had my performance review this is an interesting thing that happened. I had my performance review and pretty much went like usual, except there was one thing. And, I've shared a lot about the issues with my boss here on The Crazy Life and things that have happened. Mm-hmm. And things have been great now for a while. And there's been a few things that have happened recently at work, conversations that I've gone out of my way to comment on it because they're positives. Because you know how easy it is that we're always gossiping when it's something negative. And that's what it is. We're talking about somebody else. But, it's my experience with somebody. And if my experience with somebody is a good thing and I see someone using good behavior, I feel like I should be gossiping about that just as much as about the bad stuff.
Fair enough. Yep.
And so my boss brought up one thing that bothers him that happens. And there's a reason it happens. The reason is him that this thing happens. But I'd never really thought about it from his point of view.
Right.
And as soon as he said it, I started laughing. And luckily he laughed too, because the fact of the matter is he was right. He said, this really bugs me. And I'm just like, you know, you're right. I'm like, fair enough. It's like, you know, even though, and the fact that he came out and said it was great too, because I've shared on here, he bottles things up, then it comes out sideways.
Yeah.
This was not something coming out sideways. This was so I shared it with the one person that I've had the most, you know, my other coworker who we've had the most issues, and he's been, you know, we've been side by side, lockstep with everything. And his reaction was very much like I expected and kind of mine, which is, well, there's a reason why we do this. You know, it's like years of things going bad. We have kind of our little version of PTSD. And
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but when you think about it from his standpoint, and then my coworker actually kind of even finished one of the thing that I didn't bring up. He's like, yeah, we do this and this. And I'm like, that's exactly what he brought up. And he stopped and he looked at me. He's like, you know, I'll give that some thought because it's true.
Yeah.
You know, and it was so great to put on his glasses for a while and look through them.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's an
maybe-
opportunity you don't get often. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always felt something weird about it. Like, I'm like, you know, that's that kid. But I never, when you're dealing with someone that doesn't appear to have empathy, and, you know, it's easy to dismiss them because their actions make them seem like they're just not an empathetic person.
Mm-hmm.
But then they come out and they express how something feels. It's like, okay, no, you are capable of that. You have feelings, and you also care about what other people feel.
Yeah.
Because it feels crappy. And it was like that those are things, regardless of what happens. You know, very rarely do we ever come across somebody, as much as we'd like to say that somebody's not human. Ultimately, everybody is.
Right.
And at some point or another, I think what really makes us human is the fact when we're able to admit it, you know, to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a nice moment, and it was a reminder that things have changed for the better.
Yeah.
And that I should be grateful for that. And that I can go out of my way, because that's what I told my coworker. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to go out of my way to make this different. Because, again, it's a simple request. Somebody has made a simple request. It doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not. It's a simple request, and I feel like I should honor it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that happened this week, we also had we have an Olympic-sized swimming pool at the health club,
Mm-hmm.
and we drained it and acid washed it one day. And we had it booked for 2 days to have it done, and we had it done in like 5 hours, and we were ready to refill it. We were so far ahead of schedule, we were able to get into some real nitty gritty. But it was making me laugh about it is when I get into a production type of a job, and this was just pure physical. Like, guys were spraying, you know, muriatic acid, and I had a scrub brush, and I was just going at it, you know, trying to make this pool look crystal clear. And I realized I've become rather the salty sailor. It's like me going on to salty language. Suddenly my whole language and demeanor just goes down to a different level. And I was cracking myself up because I was making fun of people, and I was being not politically correct. You know, like there's a really short little dude that works at Zenergy. And he's a good guy. He can be a little arrogant. And at one point, one of the brooms busted in half, and I picked it up. I'm like, hey, look, it's Eduardo's broom now. I'm like, that's terrible, you know. And somebody came across the top while it was empty. You know, like, of course, everyone has their little comment. But for the most part, people were just saying, you know, wow, you guys are doing a lot of work, and wow, that looks amazing. But somebody, you know, had to say, you know, some comment about having to drain it to clean something out of there. And I was just like, yeah, we found a certain type of a hair, and, you know, we had to drain it to get it out. And it was like, did I just say that out loud to somebody that was a member of the health club?
Yep.
Nice.
I was just laughing. I was like, wow, yeah, I do that. But I kind of like that in a way that I want to be a human being, you know. I don't want to be this, you know. It's like again, I adjust to the situation, but I hope now it's, you know, because I've talked a lot about people pleasing and adjusting to myself to a situation to please people.
Yeah.
And that was a liability, and I hope now it's more of an asset, you know.
Right.
But I just couldn't help but notice it. It's like, I even told my coworkers, I'm like, you know, when I get into these jobs where we're like just digging a ditch or doing something very manual labor, I start acting very manual labor.
Yep.
Nice.
Just
Funny.
made me laugh. Like, I hope that's okay.
Right.
How about you, Jen?
Well, my week's been pretty solid. You know, hey, I'm kind of on a solid kick right now. You know, things are chugging along pretty smooth. Nothing too crazy one way or another. Trying to think of anything major that's kind of come up. One bit of an aha that I'm kind of working through is, it's funny because the little things that when you're in a couple or in a relationship of any sort, there's always, you know, or even cohabitating with someone, there's always chores that people gravitate towards.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you kind of, one person does this, the other person does that, and kind of just work it out between the two of you. And then it comes to the point where they've got those things in between, where nobody quite claims. It has to get done.
True.
But nobody really wants to do these things. Nobody claims them, but they have to get done. And there's that push and pull when it comes to getting that stuff done. And the other night I was complaining, and I didn't want to do it. And my husband said, well, I did it last time. You know, that go back and forth. You know, that's always going to come up. And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, I did it last time. And what have you done? And I stopped and I thought about it.
Ooh.
Because at first...
I wouldn't say that.
I know. At first blush, that's like, you know, that's kind of fighting words.
Yeah, kind of. It's also distorted thinking.
Yeah. There's a few things going on there. But, you know, kind of where I'm going with it is it did cause me to take a step back and kind of think about things. And it kind of reinforced again in my mind the subject of comparing yourself to others. It's like, if I'm capable and I am available, why can't I do it? You know, he's got a decent point. So why can't I do it? Now, when it comes to comparing yourself to others and like, well, they did it last time, or I shouldn't have to do it because I'm always doing it, and no. And when you start going down that path and you start going back and forth and all that good stuff, it really, you can get lost in that.
Yeah.
And when you stop and you have to think about it, it's like, in the big scheme of things, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it almost goes back in a way to kind of what Hannah was always saying, you know, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said right now? You know, is this something that I can be doing? Do I have to wait for someone else to do it? Why am I not just stepping up and just doing it? It takes 2 seconds of my time. Why is this going to be a hill that I have to die on? Yeah. You know, so it's, so that's kind of where it just kind of really kind of made me go back into that. And it's like, yeah, you know, what have I really done enough today? Is it really something that I have to stand on the ground and say, no, I don't want to do this? Or am I just being stubborn and being, you know, lazy, basically, shall we say it? You know, maybe it is time for me to kind of step it up and take one for the team. So in the end, I did. After discussion, I ended up getting up and doing the chore that neither one of us wanted to do. But it definitely was kind of one of those thinking moments for myself.
I'll tell you, that was a serious reframe too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have this at work where a couple of my coworkers, they like to not do something because the other one doesn't do it, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then I come across it on Sunday, and I go, well, it's not my job either, but I go and do it.
Yeah.
Or I'll come down and like somebody else should have done this differently, and then I'll just do it. And I'll have that moment where I'm about to take a picture of it and send an email to somebody saying, look how they left this space or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then you know what I do? I just do it because it's an opportunity for me to be of service to somebody else. And the fact of the matter is, it needs to get done. And so I'll do it. And someone will say, why are you doing that? They should be doing it. And it's like, it doesn't matter whether they did it or they didn't. It still needs to get done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I kind of felt that way like when I've seen people arguing over who's going to go change the baby. And
yes.
And it's like, while you guys are arguing, there's a baby sitting in its own filth. Like, how about you somebody just go do it, kind of a thing. It's like, but, I get what you're saying. It's very much, I don't know. It's just, I used to do that at times with, like when I worked at the video stores, because nobody at the video store, there's two things no one wants to do, and that's vacuum and clean the bathroom. And I hate vacuuming, so I was like, I'll go clean the bathroom. Because vacuuming, and the reason I hate it is because it kicks up dust and all that stuff, and it, makes me miserable, so I'd rather not do it, Whereas the bathroom, I'm just dealing with, industrial chemicals, and, you get a nice buzz, and no, I'm kidding. It's, not that those are really that much better for me. I mean, between the two, I should have dealt with the allergies, because at least, that's not generally poison. So, but I would do the same thing a lot of times as, I'd just be like, I'm going to go clean the bathroom. There's no argument. Nobody's like, about it. It's done. Done, But then I would also pull the, if they're like, if I got any guff about telling someone to vacuum, I'd be like, look, I just cleaned 2 public bathrooms. Like, you can vacuum the store. You don't know the things I just saw.
I just love your reframe, Jen. Because,
I do too.
Like, at first my gut reaction is like, them's fighting words.
Yeah.
And trust me, I'm not as eloquent as I come across on the show, because, it takes me a minute and I say things that I shouldn't say that I don't necessarily bring onto the show because,
Well, yeah, you got to make yourself look better on here. Sure.
Yeah,
but it's about where you ended up, and that's what's important.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of where I wanted to go with it. I wanted, kind of let everybody know. And I will say, I'm a huge proponent of process and a place for everything, and everything has its place type of a mentality. Same thing with when you're doing a job. Things get assigned, people have duties to do, they should perform their duties, and everything's golden,
Mm-hmm.
Assembly line type thinking. I have an 80-20% rule. 80% of the job can be processed out in an assembly line type fashion. 20% of a job is the oddities, and that's where you spend most of your time in that 20%. That's stuff that you can't automate or can't process out. So, and I do apply this to my personal life as well, in how I look at things. So it does come down to communication and, I forgot the word I was going to even use there. Shoot. Well, ultimately it comes down to organization and communication and setting guidelines and setting rules and all that good jazz that if we set our guidelines up, we set the rules up, we set the expectations up, then we can avoid, and we have the good communication, we can avoid those pratfalls and those them fighting word moments as much as we possibly can. we're always going to have them. They're always going to exist. But if we could minimize them, it's always beneficial for everybody, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of been my week. You know, like I said, nothing too crazy one way or another, but I had a good aha moment. Something else, because I have the article for us this week that my wonderful friends that I talk to over on Twitter, we've had some great conversations this week about dating. And I thought I wanted to bring to the show, and we can kind of talk a little bit more about dating in general and how wonderfully hard it is right now for those that are dating. I understand it's very difficult to find people to connect with and to form lasting bonds, it seems. You know, speaking from an outsider, because obviously I'm not in the dating world right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of what I've been picking up from talking with my wonderful friends. Now, the article that I brought is all right, the article that I brought to the table for us today, and this is an article that I found that fits our show more than it fits the conversations that we're having. So I don't want to, you know, I'm not outing anybody about their mental illnesses and stuff, because that wasn't part of the conversation I had with my friends. But it is going to be the part of the conversation I'm having with us here for the show. So just to clarify that mud, if that makes any sense at all.
Nope.
That being said, all right, to the article. It's from Psych Central. 5 more tips for finding love with a mental illness. So, we all have things in life that, you know, before the show started, we kind of talked about, you know, when do you tell someone that you have kids? When do you tell someone that maybe you have a health issue? When do you tell someone you have a mental illness? This is a dilemma that people are facing quite frequently today in the dating world. As the article says, when should you reveal your mental illness? The first date should be fun and light so you can find a common ground, but you probably don't want to wait so long that a medical event suddenly thrusts your problems into the spotlight. As you contemplate a future with your significant other, please remember, don't feel ashamed of your mental illness, medication, or counseling. It's no different from needing medicine for diabetes or having a drug allergy. They're just different types of medical issues that everyday people have. So, when is the best time to educate your date about your health? Since most people need at least 3 dates to decide whether to pursue a more serious relationship, this issue should come up during the second or third date. Just like other issues that can cause compatibility issues, such as political views or religion. If your health condition turns out to be a deal breaker, that's okay. It's easier for both parties to leave a relationship with dignity before the third or fourth date. After that, you're likely to have become more invested into each other. And if your significant other is willing to learn more about your condition and how he or she could help you, then you can expand your support network and feel reassured that they're not withholding any large secrets. So,
yeah, I think that's a great point about I've never thought about this idea of like the second and third versus the first.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, that's right. The first, you actually just want to see if you have any interest in even having a second.
Yeah, and make sure that they're not a killer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or that that there's just something like where you just know there's no chemistry. Like there's no point in saying anything on a first, and that's even a second or third. And I think this is kind of an interesting thing is because if anybody gets offended that you didn't say it earlier, needs to kind of get that into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, these aren't easy things to talk about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and B, there's a lot of stigma about it to where, because like really, if someone if someone tells you they have depression, anxiety, bipolar, they're a recovering alcoholic, whatever, you don't know the extent of, like, are they occasionally depressed, or is it 6 days a week type depression? Is it anxiety that they rarely leave their house, or is it, just hey, if, I just need a little help here and there and I can still function fine. You don't know what level this is on, and
Yep.
so I think people immediately are kind of like, kind of freeze a little bit. So I could see, like you said, like not bringing that up right away, or at least on the first or second even date, just kind of see where things are, because that's letting somebody pretty far in, because most of us that have this kind of thing, most people are not real hip about sharing it with everyone,
Well, it's just like I mentioned in here, religion and politics. They can be, it's all very polarizing.
Yeah.
And honestly, all can be very big deal breakers.
Yeah, sure can.
Mm-hmm. And I will never hold that against somebody. If you meet someone and you find out they have mental illness and you decide that that's not a relationship that you can be in, and you take care of that right off the front, hey, I'm not going to judge you for that, because quite frankly, you, and if you're not ready for that type of commitment and you back out at that point, kudos, hey, you.
I talked with a woman on Plenty of Fish one time that she, like, we were kind of talking back and forth, and then at one point I had mentioned, depression, and we talked a little bit more, and then she was kind of like, she's like, I like you, we kind of seem to click, at least this far. And she's like, but I just got out of a relationship a few months ago. And she's like, I was in it for like 6 years. And she's like, and he had heavy depression. She's like, I just can't carry that around on me again. And I told her, I said, I totally get it. I totally understand that. It's a lot to deal with as the other person. And there's no way they're not going to carry some of that on themselves. It's just nearly impossible to be with someone who has these things and not have it affect you like that. So I told her, I said, I totally get it. It's because it's a lot to ask of somebody, So, and I don't, like you said, Jen, I don't think any less of anybody for doing that, especially not at that point. Yeah. It'd be different if we were dating for like 3 or 4 months and then, or something bad happens, like you hit your first bout of depression and they're like, yeah, I'm bouncing. You're like, really? Like, that's now?
Yes. I mean, and it all comes down to communication. And for the person that has the mental illness, be prepared for the questions. Questions aren't meant to, for the most part, there's always the exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. For the most part, if someone's asking questions, it's not because they don't believe you, they are being derogatory or trying to be hurtful. More often than not, they're curious. They want to know. They're learning more about you, learning more about what makes you tick, and try to be open to and understanding that this may be new to them too.
Yeah.
This may be something they've not experienced before, but the fact that they're willing to try to understand and ask those questions, those are positive steps. And that's what you want in somebody, is somebody who's going to ask you questions about things that are important to you or very, personal about you. Yeah. You want someone to ask questions and to try to learn about you and know about you. So those things are good things.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely could be.
Mm-hmm. So, that's the first part. So, next, be open and honest. Now, this goes for, I would say, any point in a relationship, whether it's even a romantic relationship or friendship or even coworkers. Being open and honest, being straightforward with someone is 99.9% of the time the best policy. Now, as the article says, Being straightforward about your medical condition conveys that you respect and value your date. Remember to include that you are seeking treatment, as it indicates that you are taking care of yourself. In essence, you're revealing a part of yourself that not everyone knows, and you're extending an invitation to become a trusted confidant. When you treat your date as an intelligent, equal partner, you're actually giving him or her quite an honor. Don't try to hide mental illness, no matter how tempting it may seem. Otherwise, it could come across as a shock to someone who's unprepared for the reality of your illness.
Yeah, totally. Can you imagine you're out on a date with somebody, something happens, it triggers like their PTSD or just triggers an anxiety attack, and you're like, you know, like you have no clue what's coming, and, you know, like, I know, Jen, you've mentioned it on here about, like, you know, being when you're in crowds, how, you know, you seek out, you know, whoever it is that's your person in there, you know, like someone that's your home base, basically. And, you know, if you knew that going in, like if you're, hey, let's go to a concert in a small club tonight, you know, and, you know, I could see, like, you know, you just feeling like, okay, but I need this because this happens, and, you know, and most people would be pretty understanding of that. Like, oh yeah, you know, because a lot of people, even if you don't have any sort of real issues, I don't think most people really love being in the middle of a massive crowd or kind of feeling trapped in a room somewhere, you know, like that.
Yeah, this is true. And it's, you know, I've talked about it here on the show before. You know, I am a smoker, and part of what the draw is to smoking for me is getting outside of situations, and it gives me the easy out. Not going to say that it's right or wrong or anything like that, but you know, it gives me the easy out. And if I didn't have smoking, then I end up having to explain. You know,
it's
why
super
I have to
easy
step
though.
Outside.
Like you always, anyone can have an easy out because all you gotta do is go, explosive diarrhea, and just run to the door. No one will stop you. They'll just get out of the way. Boom, solved.
Right. But it's, you know, it's easier to explain sometimes, and I'm just going to step outside and get some fresh air. I'm just going to step outside and have a cigarette. You know, people usually question the fresh air more than they do the cigarette.
It's true.
Yeah, it is true. It's
to
sad,
say it.
but it's true. It is. Yeah, it's totally backwards.
It's not right, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't like dealing with the Judgy McJudgersons that I get all the time, and I understand why I should be judged, I guess, in some ways, because I'm making bad life decisions, I guess, for myself, but
yeah, we all do.
You know.
So we all do.
Exactly.
I'm sitting here drinking a Mountain Dew, so, you know, I'm like, that's a lot better.
But yeah, I mean, and it's getting worse. And it's not the people that care for me that bothers me. In fact, those people, I appreciate that they're concerned for me and my health matters to them. And that means a lot to me. What I don't like is the looks in the people, passerbyers, that don't know me whatsoever, but choose to judge me very either voicefully or, you know, vocally.
Yeah.
Or the looks that I get if I'm standing outside with a cigarette. And I try to be a very, very polite smoker, by the way. I try to make sure that I'm in a place that is out of the way, that's not in the crowd, that's not, you know, around people, so that people can choose not to be around me if they don't want to smoke or whatever. I try to be very, very considerate. So, and people aren't considerate of smokers at all.
Well, I mean, yeah, we're not going to get into this. Non-smokers have rights that are protected. Smokers don't really when it comes to this issue. So, you know, if you don't like it, stop smoking.
All right. Well, anyways, back to our topic at hand, right?
Yeah. Smoking's bad.
Yeah, smoking's okay.
I'm just being a jerk now. All right, sorry, go ahead.
So, All right. So being open is honest. Now, here's number 3. Number 3 is actually pretty interesting. Remember that your date's response can change. Unfortunately, when it comes to medical illnesses, you can't always take someone's reaction at face value. Whenever you explain your condition to others, they need time to learn and understand what's going on and what you're going through and how it could affect them. This may change their thoughts on the matter either positively or negatively. Allow them some time and space if they need it to gather more information. It's one thing to hear you describe a panic attack, but it would be a different experience altogether to actually see you in the middle of one.
Mm-hmm.
It's also possible that after initially talking with you, they may learn more information or misinformation. WebMD.
True enough, yeah. Or other people they know.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, people they know, yeah.
That changes their minds or their perceptions of your medical condition. What does this mean for you? When you discuss mental illness for the first time with your date, remember that even if he or she seems to accept it without a problem, their reaction or thoughts might change over time. If it does, it's not your fault. It's better for both of you to be honest about your feelings and limitations to avoid getting hurt later on when you're more invested in the relationship. On the other side, if they take the time to get to know you better, they might be more inclined to continue spending time with you. Remember, you're not defined by your illness. It's just one aspect of you in your life. Very true.
Yeah.
It's a big part of a lot of people's lives. It does get consuming at times, but it is not you. It doesn't define who you are as a person. And make sure the conversation, when you're talking with someone about your mental illness, especially, a date, help to keep it in perspective, because sometimes things can get a little skewed. If you talk about it and like 90% of the date, they're going to think that's 90% of who you are.
Right. I was just going to point out with that saying, the mental illness is a thing, it's not you. For some people that it is them, because that's all they do is obsess on whatever their issue is, which is understandable because, these, like depression tries to get you to do nothing but focus on it and negativity. Anxiety, once you're spiraling in it, it's hard to get out of it, like those kind of things. So like you just said, though, it's like if you're sitting there for 3 hours just talking about your depression, unless the other person is like actively involved and keeps asking you questions or something, at some point, it's very similar. I wrote a blog about, how anyone dating me is entering into a 3-way because they're also dating my depression. And, and it's very similar in that, if you're just having a conversation about, just by yourself about it, like they're just sitting there going, okay, like, is there anything else to you? Is there, so definitely you got to realize sometimes, like when you're just babbling on about yourself, essentially, it's like at some point it's like, shut up, or a good example, at least, especially early, is, similar to like if you're going to, what are they called? When you're going for a deposition, the first thing the lawyers tell you is answer what they ask and nothing more. And basically maybe do the same thing at least early on. If they ask you a question, answer the question. But you don't necessarily have to elaborate for 6 hours,
Exactly. And how you want to make sure that you give it the weight it deserves, but don't overdo it either. You can't just say, oh, I'm a Cancer, I have bipolar, I have 2 cats. That's probably not giving it enough time. Give it a little bit more time than that.
Maybe they just want to hear more about your cats,
and maybe that's true too.
Mm-hmm.
But, you kind of have to gauge your audience and kind of go with the flow of what they're kind of.
That's why I was kind of saying what I was saying about like the deposition thing is like answer if they have a follow-up question, answer the follow-up question, like that kind of a thing. Kind of let the person you're with, at least at first, kind of let let them not drive, but feel like they're driving the conversation a little bit, you know? That way you can see kind of where their interest is. But, you know,
True.
you might be, you know, because you know, the ultimate thing is you don't want to run someone off because you just seem like you're a lot, you know, like you don't want them to feel overwhelmed, I mean, when they're on the second date with you. That's, you know, akin to sitting down going, you know, I think we should talk about marriage. They're going to be like, time out. I'm going to go over here.
And there's also ways to determine whether, you know, it's like as much as you're sharing yourself with them, you're also wanting to interview them.
Yep.
You know, to see if there's someone that you even want to talk about your mental illness with. And there's ways to figure out whether somebody, and we talk about it a lot, is there are other ways to find out whether someone's going to be compassionate or even understanding.
And that's really
without
important.
You having to expose yourself.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's funny. Heno and I, after recording last night, part of what we were talking about at one point was, you know, knowing your own inventory. You know, like knowing what's wrong with you, what is okay, you know. And in this, I think that, like you said, it's like you know what you need. You know, so like you said, you can kind of, after they ask you something, you can follow up with something to kind of see how they respond to it, to see if they're going to be what you need, you know, for your situation.
Before you even get into being very open with yourself, and what it is, it's you are putting yourself out there. You want to be honest. You want to be, you know, an adult about it and have a conversation about it. But as we all know, these are difficult things. There's the fear of the stigma, everything like that. So there's ways to kind of divine whether it's even worth saying it.
You know,
if you're willing to listen to who this person is, rather than be blinded by the excitement and the hope and everything like that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's
which is the hardest thing.
Something I ran into a lot, which I full on appreciate, is similar with the mental illness, like when do you tell about whatever, is similarly for recovering alcoholics. Because do you put that on Front Street? Or do you allow that to, you know, is that a second date, or maybe even first date? Because, you know, if you go somewhere and like, oh, you don't want to drink, you know, whatever. But I saw a lot of people, like, I remember seeing there was one woman that right on there, it said recovering alcoholic or newly recovering alcoholic, you know, please don't inquire if you drink a lot, basically. And I was like, see, that's totally understandable. She's still fresh into trying to get sober, you know, doesn't need that temptation of, hey, I'm going to the bar, you know, come with me, like, you know. So that's understandable, because that's putting right out there what you need from a person, you know. And if somebody doesn't meet that from the beginning, it's going to be a problem because of where they're at. And even if you took somebody like me, you know, I drink, I'm not going to push it on. Like, if I'm with somebody that is like that, I certainly wouldn't push it. If anything, if I saw them going for a drink, I would do everything I could to stop them, kind of a thing, or at least talk to them about the decision, you know. But at the same time, just
like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
well, I'm trying to get through this date.
You're like, why do you think I've been knocking them back? I'm insufferable. Oh man. Excuse me. So yeah, but like I said, I had a lot of respect for the people who are willing to put, because that's a really private thing to put out there for anyone scrolling past your profile. You know, it'd be different if you start talking with someone and you kind of like, hey, I just got to let you know this, you know. Mm-hmm. But to put it out there for anybody, it's much like I've had people talk about how we talk so openly on this and how they admire that because they don't feel that they can, you know. Yeah. And now at this point, it just feels like second nature. Like, I'm like, yeah, ask me whatever you want to ask, you know. Like, if it's something I don't want to answer, I'll just tell you I'm not going to answer that. But it's pretty rare. I'm pretty open about stuff, you know. And that's why after a while, like on the dating sites and stuff, I just put right on there, you know, like depression and anxiety. And then I believe it was in like parentheses or something. I put, you know, being treated or seeking, you know, like, you know, that kind of a thing. Or under control. That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was, something like that. And I've seen a lot of people doing that, and which is good because I feel like people are feeling safer about the potential judgment of these things, you know, because so many of us have all these things, you know.
Well, the next one in our list here is take time to get to know each other. Simply getting to know someone is often more simple than dating someone new. You're not trying to find someone to fill expectations or a specific role. You're just trying to connect with someone you like to be around. In part, this means not getting sexually involved too quickly. It might be wise to take things slow before creating a romantic attachment. This creates a more secure environment for you to learn about each other's strengths, weaknesses, and personalities. If you don't mesh well as friends, then you certainly won't work as a couple. It's easier to let a friendship fade with dignity than break off a romantic relationship. On the other hand, if you find that you have a new friend and the physical attraction is there, then you might be ready to try dating each other. After all, the strength of a marriage or any other intimate relationship depends upon the strength of the underlying trust in friendship. If you two are already getting along great, then you have a strong foundation for forging a deeper bond. Plus, by this point, he or she will already be more familiar and comfortable with your mental illness. You know, there's a lot to be said for being friends first.
Yeah.
There really is.
Yeah. I mean, I
I
get it, but I
can
kind of
see
feel
it,
like I was
yeah.
just in health class.
I know, and
You're going to feel
so
tingly
tough
around the other person. Now ignore those and suppress those feelings.
Funny.
That's the toughest part, is because chemistry, when chemistry is there and chemistry is strong, it is really hard to want to put that on hold. It's just, you just want to take care of, you just want to pursue that.
Yeah. I think like this kind of goes to my taking inventory comment, or knowing your own inventory. Like if you are a person who tends to fall fast and heavy, you know, maybe you are the type who should try to, you know, maybe go a little slower or, you know, develop it a little bit first. But I mean, I don't know, you know, that's for each of us to decide on our own, of course, but I get what they're saying.
I think what that's really saying, at least what I'm getting from it, is depending on a person's, you know, how able are you to handle the dating situation or, you know, some of these traditional roles. Maybe for you, a different approach is a better approach.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that, and if putting yourself out there to a certain format of getting to know people tends to not work for you, look for alternate ways of doing it. And some of those may have to do with extended friendships and that kind of stuff before actually getting romantically involved.
Yeah.
And yes, you that means you're making the pool a lot smaller. You're looking for something very specific, but if it's something that is that important to you, or that you have the difficulty, you know, with, then it has to be worth it, because it's who you are, basically.
Yeah. You know, actually, I had forgot, like, I was just thinking about it. It's like, I can think of a time I talked to a woman on, I believe it was Tinder the one night, and she was talking about how she was not looking for any sort of relationship. Like, she just wanted to go on dates, basically, because she, I don't remember how she worded it, but it was, she kind of almost was saying like she was a recovering, oh my God, I can't think of the term now. Wow. I know, what's the book that I ask you to bring up all the time? Codependency. Thank you. I couldn't think. Like that she's a recovering codependent, like kind of a thing. And she's like, I'm trying to just not get serious because I'm trying to force myself to not depend on other people and to do all these things that, you know, and I was like, wow, that's very adult, you know, instead of just being like, I'll be okay, you know, and rushing right into something else. I was like, that, like, I get that.
It's to develop healthy relationships.
Yeah.
In a way that where romance isn't involved, because romance can be a tool.
Right.
in codependent relationships.
Yeah.
And for codependent people, and this is, a lot from people that I know that are working on this, is that this is one of their big hot button issues, is like, I need to create more, healthy relationships that are, and friendships where I'm not using my tools to manipulate situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a fascinating topic that we definitely need to get more into.
We've
I know
only
we
been
keep
saying
talking
that for
about
like
it.
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to sit down and really deal with that. It is fascinating and very on point.
Yeah.
So last but not least, trust your instincts and just be yourself.
Yeah.
It is very important to follow your gut. Often when what you interpret as instinct is likely your subconscious mind trying to tell you something, such as whether you should join the dating scene now or wait. Follow your instincts. Your mind is a highly intelligent organ that wants you to be happy and healthy and will give you indications as to what is good for you. Caveat: when you have mental illness, sometimes it's not the most reliable thing, your mind. But for the most part, we'll go with it. Finally, relax. You're an important person of value and worth, and dating you is a privilege that shouldn't be taken lightly. All right, we're going to repeat that one again. You are an important person of value and worth, and dating you is a privilege that shouldn't be taken lightly. Got that, folks? Rewind it a few more times if you need to hear it again.
You know what? One thing I liked about that is the be yourself, be honest, and trust in your intuition, which I like better than instinct. Because for me, if we're in a good place, meaning that you don't have a bunch of anxiety from outside factors, like work life is good, home life is good, whatever, your family life is good, all these things, you're feeling like you're doing something because the time is right, not because you need it or that kind of stuff, then I think you can trust your intuition. And now, Jen, you've brought up many times the tools that you use with your friends to help you with your intuition, by having people to check in with. And will you keep an eye on me? And when I get done with this, will you, will you do a debriefing basically?
Yeah.
And let me know if I'm allowing, if I'm truly using my intuition or if I'm, getting into expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are so important, especially when you are, if society gives us an image of how something is supposed to work. And especially when it comes to dating, we have plenty of examples of it in TV and movies. That does not mean that's the only way that it works.
Right.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, folks, when you're watching those shows and those movies, especially the romance ones, think of how long the relationship is actually being shown. It's just shown in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Very seldom does the romance show the relationship 2-3 years down the road.
Yeah.
They're just showing you the first couple months, 6 months, maybe the first year, but they're not showing you when things get, a little bit wonky, and they're not showing you all of the other stuff that comes with the relationships. So, when you're using that as a basis of what you're looking for a successful relationship, just keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
good advice.
One more thing here. You bring strengths and weaknesses into every potential relationship, and so does your date. What matters is how you feel about yourself when you are with this person and how well your personalities mesh. You deserve to be happy and healthy. You deserve to go after and create a fulfilling life. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. Yeah. And I love how they mention here, what matters is how you feel about yourself when you're with this person.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
It is.
Yeah. You really want to be with someone who makes you want to be better or helps you to be better.
Yeah.
Helps you.
Yeah, and talk about, here we're talking about basically being open about your mental illness or whatever it is that you have. if in the process of expressing that you feel better, that's a person worth going on another date with.
Right? Because
Right?
that's exactly what I've said about going to therapy, essentially. Even though I'm not saying this person would be a therapist for you, but it's like, that's the thing. When you find that comfort, that when you talk about what's going on and you feel better, generally you're on a good path.
You're in
there.
the right direction.
Yeah.
Like, if you express something that gives you a great deal of anxiety, and at the end of it, you feel like it was worth, and that you feel protected and that somebody's understanding of you, then wow, that's you don't need any fancy schmancy intuition to know that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
And the reverse as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully they feel that from you too. Hopefully they feel that that they want to be better for you and because of you as well. If you can have that, symbiotic, I think is the right word for that. Symbiotic. Thank you. I think that's the word I'm looking for. For the symbiotic relationship where both parties benefit.
Not always. I've read Spider-Man. That black suit didn't really help Spider-Man. It became Venom later. Then it spawned Carnage. I don't know about this.
Fine. In some cases, it's not the right word.
I should have started that by pushing my glasses back on. Well, actually.
Exactly. So there you go, folks.
How about just some symmetry?
Yeah.
So there you go, folks. There's a little bit of help with the whole dating world, and I'm going to put this out there for all the audience. I love talking with people, and I do consider myself pretty good with the whole relationship thing from years and years of trying and working at it. So if you want to run anything past me, feel free to reach out to me. In fact, I bet you the guys would love to hear from you too. So if you want to continue the conversation, you know what to do. You can reach out to us at the Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com is our email address. The Crazy Life Podcast.weebly.com is our website. You can reach me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. You can also hear more from me on Shake the Sheets. You can find that at Shake the Sheets Podcast. You can find that at shakethesheets.com is our website. And Henno, how can they reach you?
Find me on Twitter at Ida Henno, and you can find me on Facebook, Henno Heiter. You can message me on either place. And if you're into it, if you're watching the Orville, we just reviewed and rated. We rated all 14 episodes of season 2, and we just released that last week. So if you're interested in that show, you can check out that podcast at The Orville Lights.
Yep.
Awesome.
And
Brian?
You can also find this show on Twitter at at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can also find me on Salty Language, which is at salty_language on Twitter, or at saltylanguage.com. And like I said, this week and last week, actually, Henno has been the co-host with me. And there's a bonus episode up where we talk about the Game of Thrones finale. So if you're looking for hashtag more Henno, we got you. You can find this show's Facebook page or group at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. Where is it? There it is. We are part of the Danger Entertainment Network, which can be found at dangerentertainment.net. We're also part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. And make sure you go before the intro song for the podcast and listen to the little gimmick there from our pals over at the Pittsburgh Nerd Podcast. And maybe go check their show out. Or don't be a jerk. It's fine.
It's your right.
Yeah.
You be you, boo.
Yeah, do what you boo. Yep. So yeah, I think that's all the links. So, if you need help, please reach out. To friends, family, one of the online networks or crisis helplines. Please, if you're having a crisis, please try to not be alone. And again, just try to get a hold of someone so you can, maybe they can just be with you through the hard time. But also check on your friends, especially if you know they've had a rough go lately. But also check on the ones that always tell you that they're fine. Because, I said before, I'm fine was probably the most common shield I ever used. So, yeah. So check on them too. But also, just check on other people too. Just reach out to people and tell them, that you care, that you love them, you're thinking about them, whatever. But don't be a creep. But, and then of course, as I usually say, let's just keep trying to put good out there, are all the arguments you're having with people online worth having? Could you be, different? Could you be putting your energy into a more positive fashion? All these kind of things. Let's just try to shift the narrative from negative to positive. Because, as science seems to keep pointing out to people, if you believe life's good, it seems to be good. So, you just, as much as I hate to buy into that. But along the way, just be nice to other people when you can. And of course, also be nice to yourself. Don't try not to compare yourself and judge yourself and all that, give yourself a break.
Exactly. So with that, everybody, go out there, have an awesome week, or do the best you possibly can, and that's good enough. Have a good one. Bye.